in Ghana is far behind that of the West, right? You still have schools that are teaching students coding where they write code on paper instead of actually doing it a laptop or something like that, right? And when you hear something like that, coming from the West, being educated in the West, you say, why are we still doing this? Why don't we have students doing
Welcome to another exciting episode of the Let's Talk Education Africa podcast. So maybe till we get to sit March, I'll stop saying Happy New Year. The year has just started, 2024 has just started. And to our listeners all over, well, there's this phenomenon called Hamatan, and it's very dry in these parts. It's very, very dry. A little windy, but good. We're still going to be talking education, getting into the space, getting in touch with the people who are making things happen. And today, I am proper excited to have, I'm having two strong men going to talk about their EdTech products. And this is the first time this is happening. So it just goes to tell me that this year is going to be a good year, because this is the first time we're having one founder, and I think the next one is the CEO, who are actively going to unpack their entity's vision, mission, and who they are really in the marketplace. So let's jump right in. This entity is called Techten Planet GH. So they are basically a non-profit in Ghana that's actively, participating in the ongoing advocacy for STEM education across Ghana and Africa. They have this beautiful quote on their page that says that we believe that STEM should be a practical, hands-on learning experience. So our organization wants to facilitate the tools, materials, and know-how needed for the actualization and expansion of STEM activities together with other stakeholders across Ghana. I'm excited to have them. You get to know him soon, Manny. I met Manny last week, Thursday, at Ghana Code Club. There was a really interesting event organized by GSET. He shared a bit about his entity and what they do, and it got me really curious. As co-founder, I'm always hunting for people within the space, and especially the edtech space. I'm excited about how young people have risen to the occasion post-COVID and are coming up with really interesting innovations that are facilitating teaching and learning in our classrooms. So with me in studio today we have Manny Opp, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have the founder, who is Oscar Yaw Asamoah, who is, he's all the way in Belgium. So yay to that. I'm excited to have the both of you on. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Kwame. It's good to be here. And thank you very much for putting the time to put this together for us to have this conversation.
Good.
Yeah, likewise on my side too. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Awesome to have you guys. It's really good to have you here. It's beautiful to know young people like ourselves, taking a bold step and trying to make a difference. So I'm going to go straight in. I met Manny first, so I'm going to start with Manny. Manny, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Yeah, I'll try not to keep it long, but where to begin? Okay, so I grew up in Ghana here. I grew up in Kumasi till I was about 11. I grew up with my grandparents, but my parents were abroad. So at 11, I moved to the US, Florida specifically. My interest in tech came around when I was 15. I was playing around with some, not a very good computers. It always breaks all the time, right? So I had this opportunity to struggle fixing it. So it brought an initial interest in technology, like problem fixing. You have this issue with this PC that's always giving you issues, right? But you want to use it. So you have this urge to always want to fix it. Also, I was venturing into college. I wanted to do something in the tech space. So during my research, I looked up computer engineering as it encompassed a wide array of IT solutions on the software side and the hardware side. So since then began my journey with technology. Now, I always had this passion of coming back to Ghana to do something. What that something was, I didn't really know, right? So throughout my school activities, then after school, my career activities, I had this plan in the back of my mind. I didn't know how it was going to be actualized, but it was always in the back of my mind. Everything that I did sort of led to it. That eventually my goal was to come back to Ghana, and the things that I've learned and I've done, I'll come back and then share with the young ones that are growing up, so they can get the same opportunity that I got to get into technology and to do something with it. Right. So when COVID came, it was a good opportunity since the work from home became a norm. And when you're working from home, you get an opportunity to do more. So throughout research and doing, like finding out what the issues were in Ghana, especially in tech, how can I come back and impact our community, the young community in Ghana, to basically accelerate tech education in them. And when I came to Ghana through my venturing around, seeing what's going on, I ran into Techten, met Oscar, and since we shared a similar goal, which is to bring education to the youth, we decided to sort of partner and get this journey going together to build Techten in a way where it can impact the community, the young community, so we can see them come out and do greater things. So in brief, that's where my journey sort of like has taken me to here.
Awesome. Oscar, I'd like you to give, myself and, our listeners a context, right? A context in your childhood that you believe has influenced the path that you're on today.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the context will be the fact that I grew up also in Ghana like Manny. I actually was around 17 before leaving Ghana. And prior to my leaving Ghana, I think around back then that's how they used to call it. I think JHS2, my mom started this computer company called Microdeal in around Kumasi, Tafo. So it was actually where my love for computers began. And I got to learning it and also teaching other people whilst I was also maintaining the business for my mom. My uncle was not very interested in it, even though he was supposed to be in charge. So actually, that is how my interest for computers, my interest for tech started. I did a little bit of NIT back then in Kumasi before also leaving. So I have always been on this trail of learning, but at the same time also helping other people learn what I'm learning, or at least getting to know what I know. That is basically what led to Tech 10 as it is now, because while being here, I saw now, like Manny was saying, you learn a lot of things, you see a lot of things, and the question becomes, how do you transfer this knowledge back to where you're coming from, knowing that there is a big gap, there's a greater need for it over there. I don't know if this answers the question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's good. It's good. So you guys know each other before, because I'm seeing a lot of similarities. There's the Kumasi bits, then there's the two of you running away to the States. So what's happening there?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I don't want to be phased by us, but I think that, God works in mysterious ways, as they say it, right? Yeah. So I think our story kind of sounds similar. We have a little bit of similar background, but different directions a little bit that we confluence at the end of the day in Ghana to take this project forward. But we didn't know each other in Ghana. I think the first time we met, as Manny said, was the first event that we organized with to the Raspberry Pi Experience Day that we organized, that we got to meet the first time. And once we met, we had a discussion, and right away we knew, like, okay, we have the same interest, that we could build this up. And me not being based in Ghana, it was like the best opportunity that we could have to have somebody like Manny on board with all the skills that he have, and I mean the passion that he has to help, because we want to see Ghana, the youth of Ghana, rise, especially in being able to become community problem solvers, like having the skills to handle issues instead of always the externalization and always looking outside for support. So this passion, I think, was really what helped us click and also stay together. Yeah.
Awesome. It's really, really interesting. Yeah. But I'm actually part of this this entity as well, and we basically focus on working with purposeful brands. And I remember a conversation I was having, and something similar like this happened. And what came to my mind was that when you decide to embark on a path, right, that you consider bigger than yourself, normally that I'll typically call that a purposeful path or a purposeful project. What happens is you just, I don't know whether the word is miraculously, but you just tend to attract similar people sometimes they were close to you the whole time and you never knew. But then, just as you're working and you're building and you're creating, you end up, it's like this energy, this ball of energy that you're like emitting, and then it hits somebody else who is also on that same path or has that intention. And sometimes, yeah, just like in your case, the two of you meet and then magic happens. It's a really heartwarming story hearing how the two of you started off in Ghana and have gone out and you've come back, worked together, and you're looking to transform the education space. It's really, 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 really nice to hear. My next question, I think I'll throw this to Manny, right? Manny, what's your take on the education space in Ghana?
Okay, so the way I've seen it, being on two different fronts, both the US where I left to and then Ghana. As Oscar briefly touched on, I don't know if you caught it, but you will notice that there's a huge gap in our educational system. When you look at JHS, SHS, tertiary, and then from there, how it transfers to, a career, there's a huge gap in there. And that gap you can basically calculate, which is there's a lot of theory that the students are learning in school, but they don't know how to transfer that into something real. Like the thing that I'm learning in school, how do I make something out of it? How do I impact my community with it? So when you speak to the students, you sort of have this hustling mentality where they don't actually know what they're hustling for. So eventually, a lot of them end up complaining that they can't get jobs, so they don't know how to get jobs with what they learned. And they're not really taught how to do research, right? And the curriculum, the tech curriculum that we have here in Ghana is far behind that of the West, right? You still have schools that are teaching students coding where they write code on paper instead of actually doing it a laptop or something like that, right? And when you hear something like that, coming from the West, being educated in the West, you say, why are we still doing this? Why don't we have students doing practicals in school? Why isn't that a requirement for students to have practicals in school? Because at the end of the day, when you go to a business, that's what they're looking for. Do you have experience building these things? Can you bring impact in my business? Because that's what they're looking for, people that can eventually improve their business. So in conclusion, the educational system here in Ghana needs a lot of improvement. It needs help. And that help it needs is to basically revolutionize the curriculum, at the core. Because right now, a lot of the organization, you see, we're doing things as an extracurricular activity where the students would do their theories in school, and then, in their free time, they'll come to the lab and do certain things. But we have to find a way to integrate the curriculum that we've built and the activities that we're doing into the actual schools. So it's a normalized thing for everyone to have an opportunity to participate in it, not a select few who heard about it and, took the opportunity to go and actually participate in it, right? So this is part of our goal, is to sort of integrate or make a loud noise. So the powers that be can say, hey, we need this. We need this because we see the students that are doing this are able to get jobs, able to start their businesses because they're building real life experience that is desirable by the tech market, right? As opposed to them not having these skills and not being desirable. So you see, even jobs here in Ghana, tech jobs are leaving Ghana to go elsewhere because they're claiming they don't have the skill set locally. So these are the areas where we're trying to bridge that gap, fill that hole that is missing here in Ghana.
You're absolutely spot on. I was speaking to Noble Dre. He is the CPD at GSET. And I mean, during our conversation, this thing sort of came up and we sort of unpacked it and came to that conclusion that when we look at, or if a lot of the developed countries, right? So we're looking at America, Europe, etc., even and very recently China, you realize how there's a clear, if you like, policy as to answering the question, what sort of capabilities, what sort of values, what sort of skill sets do we want our people to have in, say, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years time, right? And once we're able to answer that question, they sort of find ways of leveraging on education, technology, and all the other ancillary aspects to come together to be able to nurture and create that unique human resource in the country, right? And clearly, like you've done a few seconds ago, there clearly is no a laser-focused policy direction, right? That is focused on saying, okay, maybe in 20 years' time or in 30 years' time, we want to make sure that anybody who comes out of the university comes out with this specific skill set, because we know where the world is going. There's technology, there's AI, there's all of those things, right? And so we want to create or build a human resource, build that capacity to where, you're going to be having graduates coming out of our universities every year, or even if it's SHS, right? If you're going to come out of SHS, you should be able to have this sort of skill set. So you should be able to have this sort of value system to where when you come, there's that gap that you highlighted is almost non-existent, to where it's like industry or even the entrepreneurship space is waiting for you to fill those spaces to be able to make that impact that you want to make. And so what we see now is that there's a lot of things are happening in fragmented spaces, right? So I see how your organization is also coming up to fill a certain gap. In fact, it's a very, very critical gap, right? Because it's really sad when I think about it, how, especially during my time in university, we kept on hearing the same thing. There's that gap between industry and what's coming and the graduates that are coming out of the university or even SHS, clearly saying that they are not the sort of people that we are looking for. They do not have the skill sets, they do not have the proper attitudes, they do not have the proper value system to integrate into our organizations for us to move forward and push forward to get what it is that we want. And so you're absolutely spot on. I'd like to get your take as well, Oscar. What you think of the education system here in Ghana?
Yeah, as Manny said, I think that it's unfortunate to see how somehow we have been left in, I wouldn't say stuck at the same place, but there is a sort of a lack of progress when it comes to the way our Ghana's education is organized, the educational system is organized. And the fact that I personally don't know what we want from our graduates, like you were saying, whether it's junior high, secondary school, or the university level. I don't know what the actual expectation is. Is it that we just training some people with some basic skills, and once they are ready, they can fly to the West, and then they will be trained into proper, useful, how do you say, employees, or I don't know. And that is hurtful. Hurtful in the sense that it hurts the country, it hurts the people, and it puts the students at a vulnerable position, which is that they don't know what to do with themselves eventually. And then the only option is for all of us to look to the West or to China, in this case, now coming up, where we think that we can get better jobs or properly be trained to be useful. It shouldn't be the case. I think that, as you mentioned, the lack of requirements and in terms of policy making, writing down what we expect for our graduates in the next 15 years, 20 years to come is so important. But unfortunately for us, I think that the politics overshadowed the importance of the people in the position, the importance of the product, the impact that these people in these positions are supposed to make. That is my take. And therefore, they don't have the time, or they do not dedicate enough time to, okay, now I'm in charge of this ministry. What is it that I'm going to add to this office that I have taken over and into the future of the students and future generation of Ghana? It's a huge problem when you compare that to, I've been in Europe for quite a while now. I've seen, like, for instance, that over every let's say 5 to 10 years, there is a revolution to the way we study, and that revolution is mainly being driven by the industry and what is happening in the technology sector. So you'll be in school, and 5 years later you realize, like, okay, we are not studying that anymore. We don't think that is important. Or the way we used to do it this way is not the way we're going to do it. Now we are transferring to this system, because this is how, like, now with the advent of the generative AI, for instance, schools here have already adapted they are adapting how to incorporate these technologies into their curriculums and to how the students study, and overall the engineers that are going to come out from the computer science department and the other engineering departments. In Ghana, sure, if somebody is sitting somewhere thinking about these things, like, how do we make sure that we can have students in the next 5 years who understand, like, how these AIs are going to impact, or how robotics, autonomous robotics, because I think 5 years or 5 to 10 years from now, we will be dealing with humanoid and autonomous robots. Are we are we awakening to that reality? Or are we still sitting there thinking of cutlasses and stuff like that, by figure of speech? So like for me personally, it's a bit of a pain when I see, like, I think I told Money that it is our education is the reason why in Europe they have gone from making their own tractors from the 1940s up till now. They've generated from manual driving tractors, for instance, for farmers, to autonomous tractors that are now driving by themselves in their farmlands and producing massive crops at the end of the season. Whereas our people are still using cutlasses and trying to figure how to expand the agricultural output. Is the education. And if you don't have the right people in office who are not only concerned with, am I going to be elected? Yeah. And if you don't have those people who are fully concerned with that, who are thinking of, hey, we are not only here to be re-elected as members of parliament or ministers of state for the next 4 years, and that is all that we are concerned about, but we really care about the nation, the future of the future generation, and eventually the prosperity of our nation, then they wouldn't make that investment, because it's a long-term investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my view on the education, that we don't seem to. Well, I mean, let me say this as a disclaimer: the minister that is kind of active now, I think somehow he's doing a good job. I mean, I do not have the full scope of the things that he's trying to do, but from the few things that I've been watching him, and the fact that he's not giving in into complacency in terms of wanting to change things, wanting to shake things, that is already, I think, a very good step. I do not have any metrics to measure the output of his the things he's been doing. So I will only suggest that he's doing good. But in the past, I don't know what they have been doing. Especially I mean, if you leave me on this, I think I'll go forever. But consider the type of examinations that we are conducting in Ghana and in West Africa. We call this West African Examination Council. What is the requirements that leads to West Africa, or whatever it is that community may be, setting that examination for the student? When they pass or fail, at the end of the day, the ones that pass through those exams and they are successful, what are we expecting for them? The ones that fall out, what is the expectation for them? Or it's just let them go and do these exams. We will set it as difficult as possible. If they fail, then we know they are not good students, and then we let them suffer. Basically, this is for me. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because for any entity, like you mentioned in the beginning, to come together to want to, do anything, sometimes I think the lack of requirements, the lack of putting structures down instead of specifications, sometimes make it very difficult for especially students to know what the future holds for them. And that's why most of them want to leave, and then eventually when we leave, I mean, I didn't leave as a student, so I cannot put me in that category. But but then eventually when you come to the West, it's not all that rosy also. It's not as they will expect. Most of these guys are brilliant people. They have massive understanding, but nobody will hand over their important decisions to you in their own country. You understand? You will be lucky to be placed in that position. And so when they come here, it's also another level of struggle, just because the education they are not educated to have a self-determination output at the end, see what they can do. Let's assume that the West didn't exist. Could 80%, 70%, 60% of our students after graduation, after 3 to 5 years, what will be the outcome of their life? Forget the West. Forget external companies coming to it. These are some of the questions that they should be asking themselves. And if we don't ask those questions, or if people are busy with, am I going to win the next elections alone and stuff like that, then yeah, you will be doing favoritism and all that stuff that doesn't guarantee a good outcome in the future. eventually.
There's this quote I've heard that says that one of the critical components of leadership is the ability to, define reality, right? And clearly, that has been lacking in our part of the world, where we seem not to be having the sort of leadership that is able to clearly define the reality to where we can say, okay, so we are really lacking in this area. Fine, everybody knows, everybody understands, right? We get to understand and know the reality. Then from there, we are able to say, okay, this is how we are going to go about it to sort of get the outcomes that we want, right? There's clearly that gap to where the long-term thinking required to be able to solve our problems is lacking. And I mean, from both of the comments that both of you have shared, it's clearly pointing to a leadership issue. And that makes me sad. It makes me really sad, to the point where, back to what I said, it's gotten to the point where everything has just become everybody doing their own thing in their own corner, in their own island, and as a result, there's a huge chunk. I mean, I could sense it from Manny's voice where he when he was giving his commentary, you could sense the frustration, right? A bit of frustration in there to where it's like you're speaking to somebody from SHS or from university, right? And you realize how, in terms of a certain sort of skill set, in a certain sense of, if you like, value or attitude now foundation, they're just lacking. So you're asking yourself, what sort of education did you receive? As we move along, we are beginning to see, leaders pop up. Both of you are considered leaders, right? You are clearly able to define the problem, and you've, set up an entity to solve that particular problem. And that's what leadership is. And, both of you coming together to aggressively work and make sure that the outcomes that you want to see, you put in the work, you collaborate, you connect with people, you network with others to make sure that we build that, if you like, critical mass for the outcomes that we are working towards. And I really do hope that we get there so we can transform the education space. Thank you guys so much for those comments. I want to jump quickly. Manny, this is for you, right? Would you say
Mhm.
COVID-19 was a blessing for the education space?
Specifically here in Ghana,
Yeah, specifically here in Ghana, yeah.
it was a major drawback. It
Okay.
was a major drawback in the fact that when we see the result of COVID-19, a lot of the things that changed, the scheduling, the how teachers interact with the students, it sort of has changed. The biggest change that it has made is there's no synergy within the schools in terms of when they vacate and when they return back to school.
Mm.
So you have this issue of, for example, right now, the students in Legon are taking a break from February to the end of May, whilst at the same time, let's say UMAT was starting, some schools are breaking for a month. It's like every school is doing their own thing, right? On the surface, it might not seem like a big deal, but it doesn't allow all the students in the different schools in the different states here in Ghana to sort of have a synergy on when they want to organize, certain events, or when organizations wants to work with them. So then an organization may be able to work with, let's say, students that are breaking now, but they don't get access to other students, right? And for me, I heard that came about with COVID when students couldn't go in person anymore, so they had to shift some scheduling around. And instead of returning back to what it was before, we're sort of stuck with this, halfway sort of non-coherent scheduling that the school is going through, right? And then beyond that is some teachers have gotten the liberty of not being present in school. Being present is a requirement for a teacher to be there, because if the teacher's not there, the students have nobody to learn from. Though the student have the resource material, they need a guide, right? So some teachers have gotten used to doing the online thing. Some teachers have gotten used to just not showing up at all. I've heard many stories of the students will go to class and, within the first hour, they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to show up, and then nobody shows up. And 2 hours in, they get an email saying, oh, sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it to class today. And they say like they say like it's been happening consistently, and it's been normalized, right? And you think to yourself, why is the administration allowing this to happen? Where's the penalty for somebody doing that? Because you have a contract to show up to teach the students, but if you're not doing it, where's the repercussion for it? So you don't do it again. So in my view, here in Ghana, COVID was a big drawback because we weren't able to handle the recovery from, being quarantined for so long, right? In terms of the economy itself, we did see some shift in the new, I'll say, economic opportunities and technology, right? But what I've noticed is that most of the people that are benefiting from this type of shift is mostly the West. When it comes to convenience services like Bolt, Glovo, Yango, we saw all these guys in post or, halfway when COVID was about to end and when COVID ended, because they provided these convenience services to many people that were well off, right? But rarely did we see local businesses take a huge advantage of this. I'll give you an example. In the delivery business, right? When Bolt Food and Bolt Ride came, when Glovo came, if you do the research, there's actually a lot of different local delivery services and food delivery services that were sort of operating with a few restaurants, maybe a contract with a specific restaurant. But when the big guys from the West came, they sort of shut all of them down. Because what they ended up doing is, pumping in a lot of investment, discounts, free this, free that, half of this, half of that. So the local ones couldn't compete with the big money that was coming from outside. So the economic shift during COVID was very, very beneficial to the West. You see a lot of services that popped up in the West, virtual services, digital marketing, that a lot of Western locals to take advantage of. But rarely did we see the people in our side of the world benefit from these services. So in fact, the result of it has made it difficult for local startups to sort of compete with these big guys that are coming, right? So when we put this all together, I'll say COVID was a big disadvantage when we look at the economic impact and the educational impact for our community.
Really interesting. I actually do enjoy what it is that I do, because you've given an interesting perspective to the whole COVID situation. Because I remember when it happened, listen, I know a number of schools that actually shut down because they didn't know what to do. Nobody saw it coming. And then when it happened, it was like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? It has affected schools. Nobody's supposed to come to school. What are we going to do? And then it just ended up shutting down. Some have not recovered, since. And I agree with you when you say, it looks as if the West, a lot of product companies in the West, a lot of innovations sparked in the West is, they are the ones that are benefiting from the COVID situation. But I flip it, and I've spoken to a few people in the edtech space, and I think one of the good things, the silver lining, despite the fact that it wasn't that much, but it was really a joy to see a number of innovations that were popping up, especially within the edtech space as a result of the COVID situation. So prior to that, we had this situation where there was the traditional thing going on. If it wasn't a chalkboard, well, some schools have transitioned from a chalkboard to a whiteboard. Others are using the projector and all of that. But the whole conversation around allowing, education technology to infiltrate the education system was very, very difficult pre-COVID, right? And so one of the joys that I had, at least observing, was the fact that we had a situation where they all came out of the woodwork, right? We had different indigenous individuals coming up with tech solutions, pushing them to the schools, making their voices heard, and let people know, hey, we are able to do these things as well. But I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'd have to side with you and say that, yeah, we probably are not doing as much. And I also side with you also to the fact that post-COVID, we are having a situation where a lot of the progress that was made, i.e. the fact that during COVID, we had a lot of schools that were open to adopting and implementing some of these education technologies, etc. We are having a situation now post-COVID where they're dropping them and they are moving back to the old ways of doing things. And okay, the hope is that it's not as drastic as I am, making it seem, but then it's like conversations in different circles is suggesting that we're having a situation where we're having schools, right? Schools that, during the period we thought, oh, we are going to adopt these technologies. They are rather dropping them off. And I'm speaking about private schools here, not public schools. But oh well, I guess it's 2024. We need to focus a lot more on the positives than the negatives. So we would progress with our conversation. Oscar, I'm sure you're realizing how having a fun conversation, extends the time, right?
Exactly. That's okay.
Awesome. So I want to jump into Techten Planet, right? And you are definitely the perfect person to unpack what Techten Planet is. So I'd like you to take it away in that regard. Tell us what Techten Planet is about, who they are, your mission, your vision, and all of that. We'd love to hear that.
Techten Planet is, the word Techten is actually a play on technology and then talent. So basically developing technological talent in Ghana, together with other stakeholders and other people who are already interested in the building capacity in terms of technology. Because what triggered us eventually to want to start this project was called, besides the fact that we knew about the local issues with education and things going on the ground. We've all read about the African report, the African Development Bank report about the fact that the population of African youth is going to grow massively in the next, let's say, by 2030, 2050. And most of the projection was not very positive when we read it, because eventually it's like you guys were going to have this massive population, but people didn't know what job they were going to do, how they were going to fend for themselves, who was going to do what. And if you're a young African, this is about, let's say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we were thinking like, what can we do as Africans ourselves? Like, how do we help people eventually over the next 5, 10 years have something that they can start a business with or be hired as an employee of a company? And so what we landed on basically was, just technology skills, something that you cannot take away from a person once they know how to do it. And that's the beauty about skills. And that's what I love about skills, because once you know how to do something, I can pick money from where he is now and perhaps you and put you somewhere else. But what you know how to do, you know how to do it. And the only thing then becomes maybe a few guidance and proper policies for you to be able to express that skills into a profitable venture for yourself. So we thought of starting that way, a center where people can come and just build projects, develop themselves, and eventually go home over the long term with some skills. So what perhaps differentiates Techten also with other groups that are maybe perhaps in the arena of the STEM activities is that we are really long-term thinkers, in the sense that we are not interested in doing a 2-day demo for these students or 3-day demo for that school or that school. We want the students to have a long-term relationship with us. We want them to first of all discover that this exists, and then get to know also, like, okay, I am interested in learning these skills, and then we helping them over the next 3 months, 6 months, and even years to really continually build the skills. So we are not really on the side of only introducing it or like doing the experiential part of the STEM activities as maybe some other people do, which is also very good, because I think it's good that we give the students the exposure, we give them some time on the devices, but we are looking at the long term. And so that's why we are also interested in having our centers like a location where these students can come, an open lab where they can come do whatever they want to do, like Manny mentioned, and also hopefully have also for themselves a commitment. We call it dedication, to want to stick with us for a couple of months to develop that useful skills that we hope for them. This is a sort of a summary of what we are trying to accomplish.
Interesting, really, really interesting. It sounds really good. And so the idea is to have, if you like, training centers scattered all over the country, correct?
In the long term, eventually, yes. Okay. And we are really looking to work with other organizations. Me and Manny, we share that same spirit. We want to, this is not about us. It's about how do we support each other to make sure that the future of Ghana is guaranteed, that we have people who are capable of solving problems and having the right attitude and the soft skills to back these hard skills that they have up. And we want to do it all over Ghana over time, of course, a step at a time. And also this requires a huge financial investment, and we know that. The third thing also is that we really want to make sure that we do a good job at one place, know that we've laid the right foundations before, because we don't want to be rushing, or we don't want to be everywhere but not producing the right impact.
So quality over the quantity, at least in the short term. Sounds good.
Yes.
Manny, do you have anything to add? Anything you want our listeners to know about Techten Planet?
Yes. The overarching goal of everything that we do here at Techten at the end of the day is to provide the student clear path for them, career-wise, whether it is if they want to work for a business within the tech space or build their own business within the tech space, right? So 2 years ago, I was at University of Legon and I was interviewing some of the students. My goal was to, especially in the IT related fields like computer engineering, computer science. And my goal was to find out from the students how ready they were, especially level 400s, in entering the professional world of IT. And the consistent answer that I was getting was at level 300 is where they were, building tech experience to go out. So I questioned them, what have you been doing, level 100 through 400? And most of them say, oh, we've just been doing theory. I'm like, so how do you transfer that theory to practicals to get ready for it? It's like, oh, I don't know. I'm just, touching a lot of things here and then, hoping that I get something that will work. So then the next question was, so what type of job do you think the things that you're doing can lead to? Same answer. Oh, I don't know. I'm just hoping and praying that the things that I'm looking into, the projects that I'm, working here and there will help me get there. But there was no clear vision of this is the type of industry that I'm entering. These are the requirements, the skills that they require for me to have. And I'm building these skills because when I go to that recruiter and they ask me these questions, I'll have the right answer. There's no clear path for that. They're just sort of throwing a dart on the wall and hoping that it sticks. And this is not how we do things. Right. And then the transition of that is you see a lot of students complaining that they can't get jobs or they can't pass interviews to enter into the job market. So there's an issue here, right? So before I met Techten, I gathered together a few students, and the idea was to take the requirements that jobs are asking for. We experimented with React Native and mobile app development. Right, that was the field that I'm very good at. So I decided to sort of build a curriculum that will teach the students the skills that the industry look for, right? And then when they complete these project-based learning, then when you go to an interview or you learn how to speak well about your experience, you're able to impress a recruiter to say, okay, I want this guy to work for me, right? So when I came to Techten, we wanted to make sure we're doing more of this. Techten has a lab that students can come to do the practicals. And sure, we're doing all these events. And here in Ghana, there's many organizations doing many different events. And you can tell from the students, they are participating in all these events, right? But when you go to an event or you go to, let's say, a get together to teach you some kind of skill, where does it lead you? Like, what do you go next with it? Like, how does it translate to a skill that you can actually utilize to bring value to a business or to bring value to the economy, whether it's a startup or a business, right? So we've taken these events and the curriculum that we have at Techten, and we've provided career consultation to all the students that come in to say, what do you want to be, right? These are the options that the industry have, IoT, embedded systems, data science, especially nowadays, AI, machine learning, software development. Which field most interests you? Okay, now to get to this field, right, to be marketable in this field, these are the skills that you need, right? What do you have already? Okay, now let's build a path for you and lead you. So if you take these steps exactly as it is, and you go in front of a recruiter, and we even teach them how to look for specific opportunities, how to prepare their portfolio, their resumes, and their LinkedIn, and how to speak to recruiters to, when you ask the question, tell me about yourself. Don't just go, but my name is this, I come from here. No, they want you to know how relevant are you to my business, right? So beyond just participation in these events, building the skills, we want to create a path for the students, a clear path that they themselves can see and know which skills they need to pick up, which projects they need to do, and which activities they need to engage in. So then they're marketable in the professional IT world. And we've opened this internship that has been very successful to some of the students, right? And it helped us realize something here with our people, that it's not the fact that we can't do it, it's just we haven't been exposed to certain areas within tech, right? Within 2 or 3 short months, we've seen amazing things that the students are able to build once you expose them to the knowledge and you give them access. So much that now you see them building their own teams, building their own startups, and they're able to prove to somebody that, hey, you need my services, like you want my services, right? So these are the success stories that we want to build more of. Don't just build a project and just showcase it, hey, I did this. No, build something that says I can impact, let's say, the farming community, the agriculture community, the health community, the infrastructure community, right? Area that is lacking, and find a way to build a solution for that area. That way you can bring value to them and also eventually bring value to yourself. So this career development, we want to start as early as possible, even as young as 8 years old, to tell them, hey, this is what the future looks like. This is how technology is changing. You have to keep up with the tech, right? And teach them how to learn, teach them how to do research, and force them to ask questions. Our educational system today doesn't encourage students being creative or students being able to ask questions. I even tell them that they are factory-born students, because you can sort of calculate this mentality that they come out with, and it's very depressing. You have to force them to ask questions. You have to force them to come up with ideas, and you have to force them to see that their ideas is relevant in this community, right? So we want to beat that into the mind of the students to be self-motivating. Go out and do the research. There's an amount of information that exists at your fingertips. So instead of spending time on TikTok or Instagram, all these things that will waste, do some research. Right? These AI tools that will bring a lot of like thousands of years of research at your fingertip, right? Spend some time putting it all together to build something for your community instead of just doing entertainment. You get it? So these are the type of experiences that we're trying to embed in the students as young as possible, so that they grow with these type of skills. And then as technology is changing, we don't have to force them into it. They themselves are keeping up with it and staying relevant. And to also show them that they don't have to leave Ghana to make an impact. They don't have to leave Ghana with opportunities. Because we see people come into our country to get these opportunities. So why don't we have access to it? It's because they've been exposed to certain knowledge. They've been exposed to certain resources that they're able to use to come and to get that benefit here in our country. But then we're leaving to go fix their country. The future leaders of our country are leaving to go benefit a different country, while others are coming to take the rest of our stuff here. So we have to teach them that these are the areas that could use improvement in Ghana. Think about how you can impact here locally before you start thinking abroad. But what about your own country? There's a lot of opportunity here in Ghana, especially within tech. We haven't even touched as much as we can do with tech here in Ghana. Right? So many businesses can utilize a lot of the ideas that the young students are coming up with. So we have to empower them to say the ideas you're coming is relevant, right? Maybe when you were younger, you were punished for speaking your mind or being creative, but that's not how the world works. Without creativity, it's impossible to make an impact. So teach them to have that confidence, teach them to go beyond just doing a project, but to see how it impacts their community and then bring value to that community. And these future leaders, we keep them here to build our country instead of leaving to go elsewhere.
I mean, you were speaking now, just nodding. I was just nodding the whole time. You are absolutely, absolutely spot on. I don't even know what else to add. But yeah, you are absolutely spot on. And I think one of the parts that stood out to me was the fact that the students here are ready. We are ready. They just need a teacher to appear, and you'll be amazed. You'll be really amazed at the things that we'll be able to do. So it's crazy. Wow. The conversation is going on really, really great. Let me come back to Oscar. Oscar, with everything that you and Manny have just spoke about the amazing things that Techten Planet is doing, I want you to mention one success story that stands out to you. And I'll go to Manny as well.
In terms of Techten in itself, I think I have always enjoyed coming back to see people who actually now Manny has this assistant tutor, I would call him. He came to him to learn some of these skills. get exposed to some of the resources that were available at Techten. And then now he is now also in turn teaching other people and so on. I think a few of them also. But I've seen some students that, for instance, Manny supported, because I mean, operationally, I cannot take any credit. So all credits to Manny because he's doing a great job. The last time I was in Ghana, the young students, even who were just, like that they were working with, who come in without a clear idea or clear understanding of what they know, how they can apply what they know, and then he coaches them, guides them, introduces them to, what exactly they can do with themselves, give them some of these skills, and you see the students transforming from first being timid, not understanding themselves, to fully discovering, okay, yeah, I can really do something, and then they're putting that into action. For me, that is like a win for us. But I think our long-term win will be to see, like, eventually, like Manny mentioned, some of these students who are now beginning to say we will start our own startups, we will go ahead and build something for the community. That is something that is also ongoing. So yeah, that is for me the success story that I see over there.
Also, Manny, any success story that stands out to you that you'd like to share?
Yeah, and I would like to showcase these groups by name. The most recent one. The first one is from Persec. I'm sure you heard about the recent G-Step program that
Yeah.
was going around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of our facilitators, Ezra, he has a friend who's mentoring one of the student groups in the G-Step competition from Persec. Right. So we went and we met with them. They sought an organization that can sort of support them in actualizing their idea. The idea was amazing. I mean, young kids that were thinking about how to help pregnant women in their pregnancy, they were building this app to help facilitate that pregnancy, whether it is exercises, diet, communication with pharmacies and hospitals, to make sure that they have a smooth transition through the pregnancy. And the story behind it was a woman not having access to all this suffered some complications during the pregnancy. So they wanted to avoid more of that happening, right? So they have this great idea, but they didn't know how to actualize it. And though they knew they needed some programming, a lot of them didn't have interest in programming because they thought it was very difficult. So we took them through some small steps and showed them how the things that they need to do to make sure this app was accomplished. So long story short, they were successful in actually building this full app, right? Being able to present it very well. Oscar was saying, coming from a timid environment and being able to confidently speak to this idea and being able to actually build it and show it on the phone. The students themselves were inspired so much that now they are seeking, higher education. They were in JHS when they started this event, and now they are moving to SHS. And they're pushing their parents to get them into real STEM. 2 Sundays ago, one of the moms called me. She was so happy to see that the child was even having interest in tech and seeing a path for them in the future. And to us, it shows that what we're doing is needed in our community, right? That the students can see an impact of it and want to do more with it. And she's asking, how do we move forward? I don't want to stop here. How do we keep going until the child gets to a point where he can build real things to the community? Get it? So when we see these success, another one that is a Brave Tech, 4 students from AIT, Accra Institute of Technology. They were interns here. Stuff that they were learning and doing here, they decided to put together a startup, right? And since they started, I think it was around August of last year. And they've already gone through 3 different calls where they've talked to real businesses that were built, they want apps built, and they are going through contract discussions. And they invite me to just sit there, and I don't really say anything. I just want to monitor. And they take the whole thing powerfully, just presenting their ideas and, wowing the investor that's coming on board. So you see them come in with an interest, but not knowing where to go. And they're able to do these activities, build these skills, and then they know where to go with it. And they themselves are, getting value from it. So these are success stories that we take to heart, and we want to do more of it. You get it? But as I was saying before, to get more success stories, we need more organizations to help us, right? Help us do more of this. It's unfortunate that we have to leave it to organizations to do this, and
Mhm.
I won't make it political because it's not a political conversation, but impact more use in these types of activities. We need to get it in the hands of the public sector, right? Because there's a lot of organizations popping up because they're seeing the same issues that we're seeing. And it's good that they're popping up because it shows that people care. People are spending the time building these organizations to bring an impact to the young students. So people actually do care. So why do we have to be the ones struggling to do with this when our leaders are there with more resources that can make a bigger impact, right? So eventually we want to get to the point where enough of us make a lot of noise, where even like a revolution in the educational system, where we fully transform it, say, let's bring modern concept in education into our system. Get rid of all these archaic things. Even if I had the power today, I will cancel this what is it called, the WOTC, right? The test. This the testing thing that they burned into the young mind. They just spent too much time preparing for it, and when the test is over, they just sort of don't know where to go with it. They were just preparing for it because they didn't want to fail. But it doesn't really translate well to how well the student is doing or where they're going to go with it. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of, I'm not saying the test itself is bad. I'm just saying how it's organized, and especially the services, how it's organized is not given the real impact, because we see students come out of this and then they go back home sitting there with nothing. So what was the point of it in the first place? You get it? Yeah. So these success stories, we love it because it tells us that we're doing something right and we need to do more of this, right? So those are the two specific success stories that I will focus on.
Right. Time really does fly when you're having a really chill, a really chill conversation. Oscar, Manny, thank you guys so much. Your optimism and passion is clearly evident, and it's infectious. And I want to say that it's a blessing to have, both of you and your organization, Techten Planet GH, existing in the marketplace. Thank you so much for who you are and the good work that you do. I wish you all the very best in 2024. Please keep that fire burning and continue to make transformational change and impact one student at a time. Thank you so much for hopping on the Let's Talk Education Africa podcast.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'll get you guys on again. Yeah, our conversation was really chill. It was really insightful. There was a lot for anybody who was listening. To our listeners, thank you so much for listening. I'm sure you've picked a thing or two from this episode. People within the education space, if you've heard the wonderful work that Techten Planet GH is doing, and you'd want to collaborate, you want to work together, please check them out on LinkedIn. It's Techten, TECHTEN, and then Planet. GH, and listen, I'm sure the conversation shows the sort of leaders who are leading this organization, and collaborating, networking with them, you're sure to make something positive happen. It's a bummer we have to end, but until next episode, please stay safe. Cheers.